The gentle, late afternoon sunlight filtered through the sheer curtains of Elizabeth's bedroom, casting a warm glow over the neatly arranged space. The room mirrored its occupant, refined, subtle, and impeccably kept. Elizabeth, a single mother in her early 40s, had always taken pride in her home and her personal flair, both of which reflected a life lived with poise and quiet elegance. As she readied herself for her evening out, Elizabeth moved with graceful confidence, each gesture revealing the comfort she found in her private haven. She had selected her outfit with care, a timeless little black dress she had bought during a rare weekend escape with friends, a moment when she could briefly set aside the demands of motherhood. Reaching into her wardrobe, her fingers grazed the smooth fabric of the dress. But as she drew it out, her hand brushed against something else, a small, humming device tucked away in the closet's depths. It was her secret, a discreet companion that had offered comfort during the solitary nights between the pressures of work and parenting. A soft gasp slipped from her lips as the object vibrated faintly against her fingers, and she quickly hid it again, her pulse racing. She hadn't heard Luca's return home, and the idea of him discovering her private indulgence filled her with a mix of shame and unease. But it was too late. Luca's had already seen, his eyes wide with shock and uncertainty as he tried to make sense of the scene. Elizabeth's face paled as the weight of the moment hit her. Luca's, her 18-year-old son, stood in the doorway, the evidence of his mother's hidden life laid bare. The small device, still faintly humming in its hiding place, seemed to taunt her with its persistent buzz. For a moment, silence hung between them. Elizabeth's mind spun, her thoughts a storm of worry and confusion. How much had he seen? What must he think? The device, nearly forgotten amidst her daily routine, now stood as a vivid emblem of her private desires, a part of herself she had never meant to reveal to her son. Luca's, equally shaken, glanced between his mother and the wardrobe, his young mind grappling to reconcile the image of the humming object with the woman who had always been the epitome of maternal composure. "Mom, I didn't mean to," Lucas stammered, his voice laced with discomfort. Elizabeth nodded, her heart heavy with the moment's gravity. She knew they needed to discuss boundaries and privacy, but the timing was awful. She was already late for her date, and leaving things unresolved felt unbearable. "Lucas, we'll talk about this, but I need to leave soon," she said, her voice calm despite the turmoil within. "Can we sit down later tonight after I'm back?" "Yeah, okay, Mom," Lucas murmured, barely audible. "I'll be awake." With that, he turned and left the room, leaving Elizabeth to collect herself. She quickly finished preparing. The encounter with Lucas, a sharp reminder of the fragile balance between her role as a mother and her life as an independent woman. As she slipped into her little black dress and applied a final swipe of lipstick, Elizabeth wondered how this moment would shape her bond with her son. Her device, a symbol of her personal freedom and desires, had unintentionally pierced the barriers she had carefully built between her private self and her parental duties. The evening ahead, once a welcome break from her daily responsibilities, now carried a new layer of complexity. Elizabeth knew the conversation with Lucas would be challenging, but she recognized the need to approach it with honesty and care. With a final glance in the mirror, Elizabeth braced herself for the night ahead. She would enjoy her date, savoring the brief return to a lighter life, but Lucas's startled expression lingered in her thoughts, a quiet reminder of the challenges awaiting her return. As she stepped outside, the cool evening breeze wrapped around her, a whisper of change that echoed the shifting dynamics within her home. Elizabeth took a deep breath, determined to face what lay ahead with the same strength and grace that had guided her through the trials of motherhood. The night was young, and the future, with all its unknowns, stretched before her. a canvas ready to be painted with the hues of life's many moments. With each step, Elizabeth embraced the duality of her existence, holding space for both the vulnerability of her recent exposure and the resilience that had always defined her as a woman and a mother. Tonight's discovery had shifted things. That much was clear. But as Elizabeth closed the door behind her, she did so with the firm belief that she and Lucas would navigate this unexpected chapter together. In the aftermath of the surprising discovery, Elizabeth found herself undergoing a deep inner shift. The revelation of her device had unexpectedly highlighted parts of her identity she had long overlooked: her femininity, her sensuality, her desire to feel vibrant and alive. She lingered longer before the mirror, her gaze tracing her body's contours with newfound appreciation. The curve of her hips, once just a part of her, now felt like a celebration of her womanhood. The gentle rise of her breasts, often hidden under modest attire, now called to be adorned and admired. Elizabeth felt a stirring within, a longing to reclaim the sensuality that had lain dormant for years. She began exploring her wardrobe with fresh eyes, choosing pieces she had once considered too daring or revealing for her daily life as a mother. One morning, she paired a fitted blouse with a skirt that hugged her curves, feeling bold and desirable. On another day, she wore a silk camisole that caressed her skin, its delicate fabric hinting at the secrets beneath. With each new choice, Elizabeth felt a piece of her former self, the self buried under parenting duties, begin to resurface. As she moved through the house, she was keenly aware of Lucas's presence. She noticed how his eyes sometimes followed her, the subtle change in his demeanor when she entered a room. A new dynamic was at play, an unspoken tension that pulsed between them. Lucas, too, was wrestling with the changes he saw in his mother. The confidence in her stride, the alluring outfits that highlighted her feminine form, these were new, at least in this intensity. He found himself caught off guard by his reactions, by the warmth in his cheeks when their eyes met unexpectedly. The air seemed to thicken when they were together, charged with an energy neither could fully explain or ignore. Elizabeth noticed the flush in Lucas's cheeks, the slight hesitation in his voice, signs that he, too, was affected by the shift in their relationship. Despite the unease that sometimes accompanied these feelings, Elizabeth also felt a spark of excitement. There was something thrilling about being seen as a woman, not just as Lucas's mother. She savored the subtle interplay of glances and smiles, the playful banter that had begun to weave into their conversations. Lucas, despite his initial confusion, found himself drawn to this more vibrant, confident version of Elizabeth. He admired her boldness in embracing her desires and her willingness to challenge the boundaries of their relationship. In his private thoughts, he acknowledged a reluctant respect for the complex, multifaceted woman she was revealing herself to be. Yet, even as they both delighted in the new layers of their connection, they knew they were navigating uncertain terrain. The discovery of Elizabeth's device had blurred the lines between parent and child, forcing them to confront the reality of their shared existence in a way that was both exhilarating and perilous. Elizabeth was determined to maintain decorum and respect, even as she explored the more vibrant aspects of her personality. The challenge was to navigate this uncharted territory with grace and sensitivity, ensuring that the bond with Lucas remained strong and healthy. As days turned into weeks, Elizabeth and Lucas settled into a cautious acceptance of their new normal. They were learning to balance the tension of their evolving relationship with the love and respect that had always been its foundation. Though the path forward promised challenges, they faced it together, each step a testament to their resilience and the enduring strength of their connection. The atmosphere in the house grew heavy with unspoken words, and the lingering memory of the device's discovery. Elizabeth and Lucas moved through their shared spaces with heightened awareness, each moment charged with the potential for discomfort or unexpected revelation. The tension had become a tangible presence, an unseen witness to their every interaction. Lucas, whose teenage world had been disrupted by the glimpse into his mother's private life, swung between embarrassment and curiosity. The image of the device, paired with the new awareness of his mother's desires, had taken root in his mind. Stirring a whirlwind of emotions he struggled to understand. As days passed, Lucas's internal struggle reached a breaking point. He realized avoiding the issue would only prolong the unease that had settled over their home. With a deep breath and resolve beyond his years, he decided it was time to address the unspoken. "Mom," Lucas began one evening, his voice wavering as they sat across from each other at the kitchen table. "About the other day, I didn't mean to intrude." Elizabeth's heart skipped, a familiar flush of embarrassment creeping across her cheeks. She had known this conversation was coming, yet she still felt unprepared for the vulnerability it required. She met her son's gaze, her eyes conveying both apprehension and determination. "I know, Lucas," she replied softly. "It's not something I meant for you to see, but we need to talk about it. We can't pretend it didn't happen." As they dove into the discussion, Elizabeth was surprised by how easily they began to navigate the delicate topic. Lucas listened closely as she explained the importance of personal exploration and the need for privacy in intimate matters. She spoke with care and honesty, choosing words that respected Lucas's maturity while maintaining appropriate boundaries. Despite the open dialogue, Elizabeth couldn't ignore the physical reactions she noticed in Lucas. His eyes, once so open, now darted away when their gazes met. His posture, usually relaxed, was tense, and she observed a shift in how he sat, an attempt to subtly conceal the signs of his arousal. The realization that their conversation was eliciting such a physical response in Lucas was both startling and unsettling. Elizabeth felt a surge of maternal concern, mingled with discomfort at the thought of her son experiencing arousal in her presence. It was a stark reminder of the tightrope they were walking, balancing their roles as mother and son with the complexities of human desire. Elizabeth paused to steady herself, reminding herself that the situation called for sensitivity and understanding, not judgment or shame. She addressed the awkwardness directly to ease the tension. "Lucas, it's okay to feel confused by all this," she said gently. "What you're feeling is normal, but we need to handle these emotions responsibly. Our relationship is built on trust and respect, and we must protect that, no matter what." Lucas nodded, his cheeks reddening as he wrestled with the dual reality of his physical response and the weight of their conversation. He appreciated his mother's candor and the compassionate way she approached such a sensitive topic. As the discussion ended, both Elizabeth and Lucas felt a wave of relief. They had navigated a difficult and potentially damaging situation with grace, emerging with a deeper understanding of each other and the complexities of human sexuality. The boundaries between them were reaffirmed, providing a clear framework for moving forward. They had gained valuable insights about communication, empathy, and the importance of addressing uncomfortable truths with honesty and care. While the conversation had brought certain physical realities to light, Elizabeth and Lucas chose to focus on the emotional growth that had come from their open discussion. They were committed to maintaining a relationship rooted in mutual respect and a shared desire to support one another, even as they faced the challenges ahead. The house was quiet after Lucas retreated to his room, the echoes of their earlier conversation lingering like the calm after a storm. Elizabeth sat alone at the kitchen table, a wine glass twirling between her fingers. The ruby liquid caught the room's soft light, casting a warm glow that contrasted with the turbulent thoughts swirling in her mind. As she sipped her wine, Elizabeth drifted into memories, vivid recollections of the nights she had spent alone, her body enveloped in the pleasures of her device. She recalled the soft, persistent hum, the exquisite release as she surrendered to waves of ecstasy, and the deep contentment that followed. These private moments, once a guarded secret, had become unexpectedly entwined with her relationship with Lucas. The knowledge that her son had glimpsed this part of her life filled her with a complex blend of shame and arousal, a forbidden mix that both troubled and intrigued her. As Elizabeth replayed the conversation in her mind, she couldn't ignore the physical response she had seen in Lucas, the subtle signs of his arousal, the way his body had reacted to the intimate nature of their talk, stirred something within her. It was a reminder that, despite their maternal bond, they were both individuals with their own desires and struggles. The realization that their mother-son dynamic had been tinged with mutual attraction was jarring. Elizabeth wrestled with the inappropriateness of such feelings, her mind racing with questions that challenged the foundation of their relationship. Was it normal to feel this level of awareness toward each other? How could she reconcile her love for her son with the illicit thrill his physical response had sparked in her? Elizabeth knew these thoughts were dangerous waters, fraught with potential for emotional and ethical conflict. She was keenly aware of the delicate balance she needed to maintain, acknowledging the reality of their shared experience, while enforcing the boundaries essential to preserving their family bond. As the evening wore on, Elizabeth explored the contours of her inner conflict. She recognized that the path forward would be challenging, requiring a careful balance of restraint and openness, a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths without letting them undermine the love and respect that defined their relationship. With each passing moment, Elizabeth gained clarity on the direction she needed to take. She resolved to approach her role as a mother with greater intention, to guide Lucas as he navigated his own emerging sexuality. At the same time, she committed to honoring her own needs and desires, finding ways to express her womanhood that were both fulfilling and appropriate. As she finished her wine and prepared for bed, Elizabeth felt a quiet determination settle over her. The challenges ahead were daunting, but she was no stranger to life's trials. She would face them with the same courage and grace that had carried her through every storm as a mother and a woman. In the solitude of her room, Elizabeth allowed herself one final indulgence, the comfort of slipping into sleep. As she closed her eyes and let the day's worries fade, she did so knowing that tomorrow offered a fresh start, a chance for continued growth for both her and Lucas. As days unfolded like petals of a blooming flower, the dynamic between Elizabeth and Lucas underwent a subtle yet profound transformation. The initial embarrassment of the device's discovery had given way to a simmering attraction neither could ignore. Their home, once a stronghold of maternal care, was now infused with an electric charge that brought an exhilarating sense of possibility to their daily lives. Elizabeth found herself drawn to the magnetic vitality of her son's youth. When she wore her favorite sundress, a garment that accentuated her curves, she noticed how Lucas's gaze traced her form with hunger. The knowledge that she could provoke such a reaction in him was both thrilling and intoxicating, rekindling a fire within her she thought had long faded. Their interactions grew laced with a playful sensuality that was both intentional and provocative. Elizabeth would brush against Lucas more often than needed, her body responding to the warmth radiating from his skin. She reveled in his sharp intake of breath, the slight falter in his step when their bodies touched, each reaction fueling her desire to test the boundaries of their connection. Lucas, too, was caught in the pull of his mother's allure. The soft curves of her figure, the tantalizing glimpses of her neckline, the gentle sway of her hips as she moved through the house, all conspired to stoke his adolescent longing. He responded to her teasing with a boldness that surprised them both, his eyes locking onto hers with an intensity that hinted at unspoken desires and forbidden fantasies. Their laughter and shared jokes were now underscored by a sultry undercurrent, their conversations filled with innuendo and double meanings that left them both flushed with anticipation. They engaged in a delicate dance of temptation and restraint, each touch, each lingering glance, a silent negotiation of the desires pulsing beneath the surface. In the quiet of the evening, when the world seemed to fade away, Elizabeth and Lucas found themselves alone in the softly lit living room, the air thick with the promise of what might be. They sat close enough for their legs to occasionally brush, each contact sending shivers of excitement through their veins. Elizabeth could feel the heat of Lucas's body, sense the rapid beat of his heart as she leaned in to whisper a joke or a teasing remark. She delighted in how his eyes darkened with desire, his breathing growing shallow as the space between them became charged with undeniable tension. Lucas was intoxicated by the scent of his mother's perfume, the softness of her skin when their hands brushed. He found himself captivated by the fullness of her lips, glistening in the dim light as she spoke or laughed, their image etched into his memory as a symbol of everything he longed to explore, but dared not touch. Yet, despite the intensity of their interactions, both Elizabeth and Lucas were keenly aware of the need to proceed cautiously. They were playing a dangerous game, one that could unravel their family if they let their desires override their judgment. They were determined to honor the love and respect that had always anchored their relationship, even as they navigated the intoxicating pull of their mutual attraction. Their dance of desire was a delicate ballet, a choreography of yearning and restraint that brought them to the edge of what was permissible. It was a testament to their strength as individuals, and as a mother-son unit, that they never crossed into forbidden territory, choosing instead to celebrate the intensity of their connection in a way that was both exhilarating and respectful of the boundaries defining their relationship. In this new chapter, Elizabeth and Lucas discovered a shared joy in the play of seduction without succumbing to its most dangerous temptations. They learned to bask in the heat of their attraction while maintaining the integrity of their familial bond, creating a space where desire and responsibility could coexist in harmony. As the sun set each evening, casting a warm glow over the world, Elizabeth and Lucas were drawn into the private realm of their home. The playful energy crackling between them had become familiar, a tantalizing reminder of the undeniable chemistry that had transformed their relationship. Yet, for all the heat of their connection, they recognized the need to establish clear boundaries to preserve the sanctity of their familial bond. They began engaging in open, honest dialogues about their interactions, exploring the complexities of desire and the importance of respecting the limits of their mother-son dynamic. Elizabeth, with her wisdom and maternal clarity, initiated these talks, guiding them with a firm yet gentle hand. "Lucas," she began one evening, her voice steady, "we need to discuss what's happening between us. There's no denying there's something unique in how we connect, but we must be careful not to let our emotions take over." Lucas listened intently, his eyes reflecting a mix of youthful longing and growing maturity, showing his willingness to understand and respect the boundaries his mother set. "I know, Mom. I feel it too, but I don't want to ruin what we have. I want us both to be okay with where this is headed." Together, They outlined what was acceptable within their relationship. They agreed that while attraction was natural, certain behaviors were off limits. They vowed to respect each other's privacy and cherish the trust that had always been the cornerstone of their bond. In the quiet hours of the night, when the house was enveloped in darkness, Elizabeth retreated to her bedroom. Alone with her thoughts and the soft hum of her device, she let her mind wander to her son. The forbidden nature of her fantasies added an edge of excitement to her solitary pleasure. Each wave of ecstasy, a testament to the depth of her longing and the unspoken bond they shared. Lucas, in the solitude of his room, grappled with his complex emotions. He was aware of the line between fantasy and reality and was determined to honor the commitment he had made to his mother. He channeled his energy into his studies and hobbies, finding comfort in knowing Elizabeth valued their relationship above all else. Despite the intensity of their attraction, Elizabeth and Lucas navigated their new reality with purpose and restraint. They cherished the closeness of their relationship, the easy camaraderie that defined their interactions, and were fiercely protective of the love uniting them as mother and son. Their agreement to maintain the integrity of their relationship meant their daytime interactions were warm and affectionate, free of overt sexual undertones. They laughed, shared meals, and supported each other through life's highs and lows, all while keeping a respectful distance that acknowledged the complexities of their connection. In this way, Elizabeth and Lucas struck a delicate balance between recognizing their mutual attraction and upholding the values that defined their family. They had ventured into uncharted waters, braving the storm of their desires without losing sight of the respect and love anchoring their relationship. As they continued to explore the boundaries of their connection, they did so with a shared understanding that their bond was rooted in something deeper than the fleeting thrill of sexual tension. It was a bond forged in honesty, trust, and an unwavering commitment to each other's well-being. A bond that would sustain them through whatever challenges lay ahead. The night was like any other, with the soft glow of the television casting flickering shadows across the living room. Elizabeth and Lucas had settled into their usual spots on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between them as they immersed themselves in the story unfolding on the screen. It was a picture of domestic calm, a glimpse of the ordinary life they had always known. As the movie played, Elizabeth felt a familiar comfort in Lucas's presence. The day's stresses melted away as she sank into the cushions, her body relaxing with a sigh of contentment. Without thinking, she shifted, her head resting on Lucas's thigh, a casual, intimate gesture that had become part of their evening routine. The warmth of Elizabeth's breath against his skin was a subtle reminder of the delicate balance they had carefully maintained. Lucas felt a surge of electricity as she settled against him, the line between appropriate affection and forbidden desire blurring instantly. He tried to focus on the movie, to ignore the growing firmness betraying his body's instinctive reaction to her closeness. Elizabeth was only half aware of the intimacy of her gesture until she felt the unmistakable firmness beneath her. A rush of heat flooded her as the reality sank in. The barriers they had so carefully built seemed to dissolve in the face of their undeniable physical connection. In that moment, caught in the pull of an attraction that was both exhilarating and terrifying, Elizabeth acted on impulse. She tilted her face upward, her eyes locking onto Lucas's in a silent exchange of desire and hesitation. Then, with a boldness that belied the gravity of their transgression, she closed the distance, her lips meeting Lucas's in a kiss that was tender yet charged with their pent-up longing. The kiss was fleeting, a brief brush of lips that ended almost as soon as it began. But its impact rippled through them, a seismic shift threatening to reshape their relationship forever. As Elizabeth pulled away, her heart pounding, she was acutely aware of the line they had crossed. The room was silent, except for the muffled sounds of the movie's final scenes, the tension between them palpable in the stillness. Lucas, his mind reeling from the kiss, struggled to process the enormity of what had occurred. He looked at Elizabeth, his eyes searching hers for a hint of what would follow. The connection they shared in that moment was undeniable, a raw and vulnerable exposure of their deepest desires. But alongside the heat of their attraction was a sobering awareness of the consequences of their actions. They were venturing into dangerous territory, a realm that could irreparably alter the love and trust that had always been the foundation of their relationship. The silence enveloping them spoke of unspoken fears, unbridled passions, and the unbreakable bond uniting them as mother and son. It was a silence that demanded words to either mend the fracture in their world or widen it into an unbridgeable gap. Elizabeth found her voice first, her words measured and heavy with the weight of their shared transgression. "Lucas, we can't. This can't happen again. What we have is too important to risk over a moment of weakness." Lucas nodded, his throat tight with emotion. "I know, Mom. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to, I just got caught up." They sat for a while longer, the distance between them a physical reminder of the boundaries they had briefly forgotten. The evening had taken an unexpected turn, a detour into uncharted territory that left them both shaken and introspective. As Elizabeth rose from the couch, her movements deliberate, she knew the road ahead would be challenging. They would need to reaffirm their commitment to each other and the principles guiding their relationship. They would need to rebuild the trust tested by the heat of their desire. With a heavy heart and clear resolve, Elizabeth bid Lucas good night and retreated to her room. As she closed the door, she did so knowing the journey forward would require strength, honesty, and unwavering dedication to the values defining her as a mother and a woman. In the stillness of the night, Elizabeth confronted the full spectrum of her emotions. She mourned the loss of innocence stripped away by the evening's events, even as she acknowledged the fierce determination within her, a determination to protect the bond with her son at all costs. With the echo of their kiss lingering, Elizabeth and Lucas stood at a crossroads neither had foreseen. The line between right and wrong had blurred, leaving them in a heightened state where only their connection seemed to matter. The gravity of their transgression was clear, yet the intensity of their emotions propelled them forward into the uncharted realm of their desires. In the quiet of the night, Elizabeth made her way to Lucas's bedroom, each step a deliberate defiance of the boundaries they had long upheld. As she entered, the air crackled with an electricity that was both exhilarating and terrifying. They were about to cross a threshold with no easy return, yet in that moment, there was nowhere else they wanted to be. They began to undress each other with a reverence bordering on worship. Elizabeth's hands gently tugged at Lucas's shirt, her eyes drinking in his form, the toned planes of his chest, the taut muscles of his stomach, the way his breathing quickened under her touch. Lucas, captivated by his mother's graceful curves, trembled as he unhooked her bra, revealing the soft fullness of her breasts. As their clothes fell away, they stood vulnerable and exposed, yet more connected than ever. Elizabeth marveled at Lucas's body, the strength in his hands as they traced her form, each touch sending waves of pleasure through her. Lucas was entranced by his mother's beauty, a sight he had never imagined witnessing. They came together on the bed in a tangle of limbs and whispered words, their bodies moving in a delicate dance of discovery and unspoken emotions. The world outside ceased to exist as they explored each other with tenderness and intensity that left them breathless. Elizabeth reveled in the sensation of Lucas's skin, the warmth of his embrace, the urgency of his kisses as they traced a path from her lips down her body. Their lovemaking was a symphony of sensation, each touch a note in the melody they created together. They were united not just in body, but in spirit, their union a profound expression of the love and desire that had grown in secret. They moved in harmony, their bodies attuned to the rhythms of their shared passion. As they reached the peak of their pleasure, time seemed to stand still. The world faded, leaving only the two of them, a mother and son, joined in an act of love transcending their familial roles. They clung to each other, their cries of passion mingling in the night's stillness. In the aftermath, as they lay spent in each other's arms, they knew their relationship had been irrevocably altered. The barriers defining their connection had shattered, leaving them to navigate the complexities of their new reality. They had ventured into the forbidden and emerged transformed, bound by an experience both beautiful and fraught with consequence. As Elizabeth extracted herself from Lucas's embrace and returned to her room, she knew the path ahead would be laden with challenges. They would need to confront the implications of their actions, to reconcile the love they felt with the societal norms they had cast aside. But for now, in the quiet hours before dawn, they surrendered to their thoughts, the memory of their shared passion a bittersweet reminder of the risks they had taken, and the love that had led them down this path. In the wake of their intimacy, Elizabeth and Lucas lay entwined, their hearts beating in sync as they navigated the emotional landscape before them. The tangled sheets offered little protection against the night's coolness, but the warmth between their bodies was more than enough. As they basked in the afterglow, the reality of their actions settled over them. They had crossed a threshold, irrevocably altering their relationship. The knowledge of their transgression hung in the air, a silent witness to the profound shift within their home. Yet, in the quiet of the post-coital haze, the complications awaiting them seemed distant. The outside world, with its rigid codes and disapproving whispers, couldn't penetrate the sanctuary they had created in Lucas's bedroom. Here, they were not bound by their roles. They were simply Elizabeth and Lucas, two souls united by a love transcending conventional boundaries. They knew their chosen path was fraught with obstacles, that their decisions would ripple through their lives. But as they lay there, the moon's soft glow illuminating their intertwined bodies, the weight of the future seemed a small price for the beauty of the moment. In their embrace, they spoke in hushed tones of hopes and fears, their whispers interspersed with silences filled with unspoken understanding. They talked of love in its many forms, the courage needed to face the world together, and the unwavering commitment they felt toward each other. As the night waned and dawn crept into the sky, Elizabeth and Lucas drifted to sleep, their bodies cocooned in mutual affection. They had chosen this unconventional path together, and though the future was uncertain, they took solace in knowing they wouldn't face it alone. Their love, complex and unconventional,